Hello, you're listening or watching 15 Minutes or Less with me, Mabs.
Pastu.
Me, Amy.
Amy.
And Sarah.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Didn't say it.
She didn't say number one this time. She's finally grown up. Our little Amy.
Well, it's only taken us all the way to the letter W to get to that point, so that's
We
quite
all know
good.
by now who Amy number one is.
These are important things, obviously. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for watching, listening. We're on to the letter W, and this week we're talking about wealth for 15 minutes or less. So I'm going to start the clock. Quite a broad subject, wealth, quite a tricky subject. So I'd like to start by asking you all, what do you think the true meaning of wealth is?
Extremely rich.
Extremely rich. What, money? Cash monies?
Well, could be anything really, but cash monies.
You want, just give
Cash
me
monies.
give me all the money.
All the monies.
Okay, fair enough. Any other thoughts, Sarah?
Yeah, or just generally like owning lots of stuff, because you might not have like a wallet full of money, but you could own like 14 hotels and
That's
3
wealth.
planes.
Yeah, fair
that's
enough.
quite wealthy if you can do that.
I would be happy with as well.
Yeah.
Quite materialistic answers on this side of the table. I'm going to go to the spiritual side.
I guess we have to. Aligned with owning, but owning maybe
Love and happiness.
satisfaction.
Amy White?
Amy,
think-
do you wanna-
Step in here.
Wealth comes in with like an abundance of, happiness.
Mhm.
Are you wealthy in your life in the sense that do you feel like you've got everything covered, like good family, love, relationships, happiness, success? It doesn't necessarily have to be money. It could be you could be wealthy in all the things that are the good things.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the first natural assumption, I think, with anybody when the word wealth is mentioned is to think of money or assets, material assets, because that's the kind of society we live in, Well, you hear about wealthy people all the time, and wealthy people generally have a lot of money. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways you can be wealthy. Your family, your friends, your education, your talent, your job. It's that kind of, spirituality. A general experience as well, life experience, that can be a type of wealth. And also, I think it's not wrong to discount good health. Good health makes you wealthy because you don't realise the value of that till it's gone. So there you go. That's deep. 2 minutes in. So
Doesn't it just mean good things in an abundance?
yeah, it is. And I mean, what do you?
That is the Wikipedia definition: an abundance of valuable possessions or money.
There you go.
There you go. So what would you rather have if it came down to it? Stark choice, black and white. Cash money or life experience and friends and family and good health?
Cash money that can buy the friends and
What kind of friends and Amy's had a hard life? Here's my rental friend.
I bought her for $9.99 a month.
I mean, we are sort of somewhat pushed to admire people that are in positions of financial wealth, aren't we, in our society? And that's not just celebrities, but even people that are sort of business owners or very successful in that way. They're always sort of championed as the success stories in our society because they have financial wealth and assets. Therefore, that's who you should aspire to be. And it's quite difficult to shake that opinion, isn't it? Because I think if you are somebody that would be like, well, I don't really care about money and things, I've got my friends and and it's a lovely thing to say, and I think it's definitely part of all our lives we should look to somewhat integrate in. But if that is just what you're like and you have that kind of very simple, somewhat humble life, I don't think a lot of people in Western culture are really going to care about you, are they?
No, but
Well,
I think
sorry.
that's
Go.
all right. I was going to say, I think I'd rather have friends and family rather than have loads of money and then people pretend to be my friends.
Yeah.
Because I think that'd be even worse. Like, you wouldn't actually have any friends or anyone that cares about you, that care about your money. And then, so I'd rather just have the friends and the wealth in life. I think that would be better.
That seems like, I feel like there's a small consensus around the table, sort of small of agreement.
Wisdom.
It's funny, I watched a show recently where rich people are put in poor situations.
Hilarious.
And
Sorry.
this one guy was like a super rich guy, and he, wherever he went, he was like, I've got so many friends. But in his mind, he was like, these are my real friends. People just love me. I'm just naturally lovable. You know, I've got a great charismatic personality. And then they said, okay, so he had to go on the street and beg his way into money so that he could get into accommodation for the night. Well, he went over to people and he realised the harshness of being homeless was. Everybody wasn't interested in him. They wanted to ignore him. They didn't want to pay attention to what he was asking. They just automatically assumed that because he was on the streets, he was either into drugs or alcohol or, you know, got himself in that situation. And the harsh reality saying that actually the only reason why people were sort of friendly around him was because he had the money and he was able to splurge it, and they were able to indulge in his, you know, successes by being a part of the event all night.
Because you also, I think there's that perception, isn't it? Is like, because you have money, you are somewhat successful. Therefore, you must be a kind of together sort of human being, and people want to be around that as well as your money, probably, even if that's not an overt thinking. Whereas if you are in a situation where you're very vulnerable and you don't have any money and you don't have any support, I mean, obviously that experience highlights that fact, but it doesn't matter how compassionate you are as a person. There is I think a part of most people where you're always a little bit fearful. Like, and that's a horrible thing, because you want to, you know, believe you would help anybody in any situation. But the reality is, you know, we don't. Like, if we did, the world would probably be a much better place, but we don't do it. So, I mean, I suppose the question is ultimately why? Is it just fear? Or is it, you know, we live in a society where it's too sort of selfish, too self-centered? Or is it that kind of like, it's always someone else's problem?
Yeah, I think image is a big thing. I think people are worried what other people think if they reach out to people in those situations. Like, oh, don't give that guy a tenner, he's just going to use it for drugs. Or, you know, so people hold back because they instantly have that playing in their mind whenever they see a homeless person. You know?
I think we have to judge people because you cannot like spend time, get to know everyone. So when we judge people, obviously one of the sign of success is, you know, you make a lot of money. So that's not a bad way of judging people based on their money. And especially like in first world country, if you're poor, the chances that that's the outcome of the choices you made is very high. So that's not a bad way of judging people. I know that there are exceptions.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a lot more complicated than that as well, where it comes down to like social mobility and the opportunities you get.
It's more about like the percentage of how correct you're going to be. And if that's the kind of bet you're going to take, the chances are you're right most of the time.
Says a lot about inequality though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's that kind of perception of, well, if you have money, you'll have the opportunities and you
have more access.
Yeah, so you have those better things happen to you in life, so it's going to continue. Whereas if you come from a less well-off family, or in a part of the country or the world where it's less well-off, you're going to have less opportunity. And even if you work really, really hard and you have the best intentions, you might not have the greatest education, you just might not get those chances in life. And people might still view you as kind of hostile or a bit of a screw up. I don't know. It's like, it sucks, really. It's very sad.
Yeah, but how people see you doesn't matter, really. That's what I think.
Well, I think you're a very strong person.
Yeah, I think because people are wrong most of the time, so why do you care?
Yeah, don't judge a book by its cover.
I think
so many of us do, though. I think so.
I guess when it comes down to getting job, you need to care what other people think. But like in your personal life, in day to day, your thought process, it doesn't matter really. If you are happy with who you are, that's the main thing. And if you're content with what you have, which, you know, one of the thing about wealthy people is, as you have more money, your lifestyle change. And there is this chain of never-ending wanting more, bigger house, more cars. So it's more about, I'm obviously, for myself, I never want to be poor, because when you're poor, you depending on, relying on other people. But if you're not in that situation, it's more about the mindset of thinking what I need and just be content with what you have.
Being self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point about wealth inequality and the stuff you sort of raised about the program you watched about the wealthy guy kind of going on the streets is interesting, because there's a lot of sort of studies and news coverage over the last few years, which I'm sure many of you be aware of, the whole phrase the 1%, the 1%ers. So that's the 1% of the wealthiest people in the world. They basically hold most of the world's wealth. I can't remember what the amount is, but it's an obscene amount. But since the financial crash in 2008, the richest 1% have sort of like exceeded away more and more year on year from the rest of society. And it's continued to rise. And that's kind of been worsened by weak wage growth, because we've had a kind of stagnant economy. And obviously a lot of us around here, not all, but most of us, I think, I don't know, what class is, I'm not going to go into what class is classed as a millennial. That's a whole other thing. But technically speaking, people born after 1981, right? You're 4 times more likely to have to rent a home than to be able to buy one than people that were before. So, those are the kinds of things that sort of constitute, wealth, being able to afford a home and having that security. And actually in this country, it's really, really bad. We're the 5th worst, for inequality in the whole of Europe, which, considering we're one of the wealthiest countries in Europe.
With renting, though, it's not really very common in any other countries for people to actually buy a place, whereas in the UK, it's more common that people actually buy their properties. You go to America, I don't know what the percentage is, but you'll find most people will rent rather than buy. Yeah,
I mean, I know there isn't the same drive, even in culture, I think, for a lot of major European countries. I don't know about the United States, but in European countries, people do rent, but it's a lot more affordable. Yeah. Obviously, I know there's been outrage in some European cities where they've had the Airbnb whole thing overtaken. That's massively inflated costs, but then that's sort of, they've tackled that with city taxing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just when you read stuff about household income in this country kind of being low and stagnant, and people using food banks and stuff like that, it does make you kind of stop and think when you see, by comparison, someone I don't know, who's the guy that owns Amazon? Jeff Bezos? Yeah. I mean, it's he's the richest person in the world, isn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and he's going through a divorce right now, or has gone through a divorce, but he's worth what, over $112 billion I've got down here.
Has his money buy him happiness with the divorce he's going through?
I don't know. Amazon are taking over the world, though, aren't they? I mean, literally everything. Wait till they open up the Amazon pharmacy.
His net worth is 117 billion.
Oh, there you go. It's gone up even since I looked at that figure.
Have you guys heard about that theory? If we equally distribute money today, within few years, the rich people will get rich again and the poor people get poor again. Yeah. Do you guys agree with that?
No.
Well,
but the theory is people who are rich, they have the mentality that I have to have this amount of money, and poor people, it's a combination of not being good with finance and don't have that mentality that they would lose their money eventually, and those people who are wealthy now, they would gain all the money again.
I suppose it's as well if you're kind of entrepreneurial and things like that, which I guess a lot of people are very, you look at the some of the wealthiest people in the world, like Jeff, and then you've got Bill Gates as well, that's Microsoft.
Steve Jobs.
Yes, I mean, not on
he
the
was a hippie.
Mark Zuckerberg's the 5th wealthiest. I mean, Facebook, that's a pretty big deal. That's around.
That's around, yeah.
Yeah. For people also, but it's also investment. There's I didn't actually know these ones, but the Bernard Arnault family. Do you know that name? I wouldn't either, but they own Louis Vuitton, Marc Jacobs, Dior, that sort of thing.
They own them all?
Yeah, because they've invested in them.
Oh, amazing.
And that's the thing, isn't it? I suppose you're sort of saying that people with money have this mentality where they will seek out the opportunities to look to make more money.
I feel like I would be one of those people if you gave me the money, though. Not
You
to
would
be big-headed,
you
but
would be investing.
Yeah, I would invest my money and make it go further.
A lot of these people who have money, they bet on people that this person, because he's healthy and because they have integrity.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Sorry.
So they're very good at like finding the people that are going to do the next big thing, and they would invest on them.
Yeah. So I suppose the bottom line is be good at investing.
Yeah.
Come up with some awesome technological idea that everyone's going to want to buy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, or something, be really good at selling stuff.
Yeah.
Or inherit loads of money. Or don't care about money and just be like, I'm really content and I'm wealthy. Oh, look, that's the
Just
end.
get into gang.
Marry an old rich person on their deathbed.
Marry a rich person, get into a gang. Brilliant.
Or just be happy with what you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or be happy with what you have.
Yeah.
You can't get into the gang or marry a rich person.
No, I think we're going to end it on that. I think we're going to end with a round of applause on just be happy with what you have, because that makes you wealthiest, right?
Yes.
Well, I'm calling it. Okay, thanks very much. This has been 15 minutes or less. Goodbye.